My new book is now available. It's called Peace Over Pain: How to Eliminate Chronic Pain and or Chronic Illness so you can break free from the medical monopoly. If you want it instantly, you can get the ebook and audiobook together as a package on peaceoverpain.com. And of course, the paperback is available on Amazon right now.
Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Are you already enlightened? Welcome to episode number 143. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Rosie Kuhn. She's a thought leader, a coach, a veteran therapist, and an author. So sit down, relax, and take in this beautiful and valuable recording. Let's begin. Dr. Kuhn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Reese. Nice to meet you in person.
How would you describe enlightened living?
Oh, I like that question. Number one, I believe that we are already enlightened. I believe that we are divine beings in this human experience. And so enlightened living is cultivating the capacity to know ourselves just even a little bit more as a person of consciousness, a person of intelligence, and our willingness to move that from where we are in our belief systems and where we're limited and constrained to something a little bit higher than that. So enlightened living is the willingness and to grow that capacity to go, oh, and those moments of the aha, the insights, but then taking it to the next level of training ourselves to sustain that awareness, in a sense, there's a transcendent experience, and we can then train ourselves to stay at that level. And that's what most of us are challenged to do, is train ourselves, as Yoda says, train ourselves to let go of what we're afraid to lose.
You gotta love Yoda knowledge. I mean,
oh my God,
George Lucas really threw some gems in there.
Yeah, and he got a lot of his stuff from Joseph Campbell, which makes sense when you know who Joseph Campbell is for people.
Yeah, a lot of Buddhist and Taoist principles in there. Stoicism, maybe, as well.
Yep.
Gearing yourself up to lose what you're scared to lose. Why are we so scared to lose things?
Our perception of change is uncertainty and loss. And we are attached to what we're told we should be attached to. We're attached to what is our comfort zone, even though it may create suffering and pain. We're attached to that because we know the certainty of that. It's the uncertainty that we are attempting to avoid and ignore and distract ourselves from. We think that we know it all. We think we've got it set. If I've got this job or this career, this, that this is going to be the track and it's going to be great. And then all of a sudden something happens. And whether it's COVID or something, or an illness or something, it's like, wait, I don't know how to do me in that. And that's the big deal. And whether it's in relationships or work or money or whatever, it's like outside of my comfort zone, I don't know how to do me. And so I'm going to work really hard to stay where I know how to do me and let the rest of it.
Uncertainty scares the snot out of people. That's where anxiety comes from, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. To me, I realized that when I was going through what I call a spiritual immersion process, sort of the dark night of the soul kind of thing, that this anxiety would come in, and it's like, what are you doing here? And it's like, I'm keeping you from blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you are like the wall that keeps me from knowing what's possible. You're saying, oh no, you can't go there. You can't go there. You can't go there. But the truth is that when I can see that for what it is this wall that's there to not protect me, but that egoic sense that to protect itself, then I can lower it and then begin to get more comfortable crossing that threshold. It takes faith in something other than what we're trained to have faith in. We're trained to have faith in the consensus view of reality. We're trained to have faith in what other people tell us we should do. We have faith in our politics or our economic systems and our academic system. We have all faith in all that, and we aren't trained to have faith in something beyond that. So that's what part of what's scary.
Well, you just said a big term that comes up on this podcast a lot, and that's the dark night of the soul.
Woohoo!
I had a 7-month episode. How about yourself? What's your experience with that?
I've had 3. One when I was in my adolescence, one when I was in my 30s, and then one when I was in my 60s. The last one, I'm basically saying has lasted 10 years. Now, when people say, oh my God, I would never be able to do that, you get clearer about what's being required in terms of the learning opportunities. That's why I have a podcast called Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. And it's that there's nothing, as you know, it's like there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, they can't fix it. So what are you going to do? You're going to start to explore what's true here, what's real here, who am I in this, how am I being, and what am I attached to? We start asking all those questions so that we can get to know who we are in this, as this spiritual being in this human experience, or as a witness, or as a whatever we're observing in ourselves as we're doing this. So the last one actually, and that was, in a sense, when I was in my adolescence, I had no consciousness, I had no support, I had nothing to help me through that. And I just had to grin and bear it through until it was over. And then I went back to normal life. And when I was in my 30s, I was a therapist. And so I had some consciousness about the process. So I was able to be much more nurturing and nourishing and aware of that. And then the third time I had gone through, my degree is in transpersonal psychology, my PhD, and all kinds of spiritual experiences and trainings. So by the time this one came in, it was like, okay, we're going in, but not go in like, Indiana Jones kind of thing. It was like, I wrote a book called The Unholy Path of a Reluctant Adventurer. So it's like taking those little steps, is, because that's all we can do, whether we're in a dark night of the soul or just getting through today.
Yeah, it's just one day at a time.
One day at a time, or one moment at a time. So when you're in those excruciating, scary, horrible, terrible, no place to go kind of moments, Stan Groff talks about it as hell no way out in terms of the birthing process. Then it's like, what do you do? How do I be me in this? And that's what it's all about.
So the one in your 30s, how did you continue taking clients while you were going through it?
First of all, I had to keep working. So the short version, CNN version, is I got married early, had children early, divorced. And when I divorced, it made sense for me to leave my kids with their dad so that I could get my degree or get my work and then have them come live with me. That was the plan. And so that's what I did. And I sort of went into a state of denial because I was going, they're in a safe place. They're home. They're in their own beds. They have their family. They have all that. I'm good. I can make this happen. So what happened is I actually had gone into denial of the loss of my motherhood, the loss of my kids, loss of all that stuff, just denial. And in terms of that emotional. So in the 30s, what happened is a boyfriend broke up, but what it did is it just shattered all my armoring. And I had to deal with the grief and the loss of my children, of my motherhood, of a reality that I thought was going to have all that stuff. So that was about 6 months. I mean, some of it is like you just have, there would be these sparks of opening. But for me to keep working was a really important component of this process. And I just did a YouTube live on Dark Night of the Soul, spirituality and the Dark Night of the Soul, and basically saying, here's the 6 things, 7, 8, 9, 10 things to do to get yourself through this. And part of it is do something that's productive if you can, or creative, definitely creative. I paint and knit and do all kinds of stuff. So creativity is really important. Drinking, resting, but getting out of the way of self-hate and self-abuse for that, you should be able to work, you should be able to, and just like, hell no, this is big work. And I want everyone to know that it's most likely going to happen to you in whatever way it happens, and how to be with it in a way that's like, you don't feel so, I don't know if you use the word fucked up on this show, but
it works.
But that sense of being fucked up and no way out, but that this is actually a very normal process for most of us, though we hide it or ignore it.
Isn't it interesting how it's almost everyone I've talked to that has been in it, it's triggered by loss.
Yep.
And then grief comes.
That's right.
When I was going through it, I was grieving for my parents, and they're still alive. Yes. It was like, what's happening?
How do you make sense of that? It's and unless you're, as a spiritual or a transformational coach, I love being with people in these what seems like it's insanity. Why would I be grieving my parent? It's like I don't know, but that's what is. The isness of that is, in a sense, the gift where we can honor the isness of it, as opposed to going, yeah, well, that's really stupid. But maybe what you're really grieving is, and then fill in the blank. It's like, no, it's like, this is what's true. This is honoring, respecting that.
So I'm considering myself pretty lucky or blessed because, I went through it at 41. And I had all this spiritual practice leading up to it. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of obvious. And what it did was it forced me to open. And so now what I do is I work on it every day. Yes. And so my goal, if you will, is to never have to really go through it again, because I work on it every day. Now, maybe I will. I don't know. And if it does, so be it. If it happens again, so be it. Bring it on. But if you keep working on yourself and keep opening every day, and you keep working on yourself, maybe you won't have to go through it again. I don't know.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Someone needs to check in on me 30 years from now and ask me,
And it's not like, I totally agree with you. I think that the work that I do every single day is really important. And to realize that every single circumstance that shows up is an opportunity for self-awareness, self-revelation, and enlightened living. My relationship with my daughter is constantly, because she wasn't raised with me. And so has her reality, I have my reality, and we're in this dance of relationship, and it's just like it's just like hitting my head up against the wall, but not because she should be or I should be, but what's the attachments that are happening inside me that has this be what it is in me that creates the suffering and the sadness or the grief. It's like, what are my attachments in here that are making it so difficult? And when we can ask ourselves those questions, because every circumstance that challenges us, whether it's COVID or Russia or, snow or whatever it is, and we go, damn it, I'm upset. It's like, okay, what am I attached to? What are my attachments in this moment? And it's taken me to, okay, I want to be a mom. I've always wanted to be a mom. It's like, okay, and your attachment here is, and, so taking it out of looking at my context. What does that mean? What does that look like? And that's where, if we can do that with ourselves or with a support person or listening to you or me and our podcasts and stuff, it's like people go, oh yeah, I get it. I'm not asking that question yet.
It's mindfulness, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
just keep taking inventory on what's going on with you. Keep auditing yourself because the
Yeah,
mind does what the heck it wants to do based off of its patterns and programming.
that's right.
And then it creates emotions.
That's right. And
It's a phenomenon. It's and people get caught in that dream-based reality and they throw a label on it called mental health
that's right.
issues. It can turn into this cycle where they might go to a therapist and they might be at the therapist for 10 or 20 years, constantly in victim oriented thinking. Unless you get the right therapist that knows exactly, mindfulness or cognitive behavior therapy or something like
Yes.
that can get them out of it.
Yeah. I was trained as a marriage and family therapist, and in the 80s, it wasn't controlled by the state or the country, some thing that said you had to do based on diagnosis and all of those kinds of things. It was really about human beings in relation to human beings. And I went to Nova Scotia and worked in recovery. And it was really great, a really great situation because I didn't have that structure of mental health, and I've always been on the outside of that structure, if you will. The mental health unit was on the first floor, and we, as the recovery people, were on the second floor. But what I realized was, as a therapist, I wasn't trained to be with spirituality and working with, and this is when I was just a newbie as a therapist. I was working with people in recovery, and it's like they had something I didn't have, and they had something in this 12-step program that we need in therapy. We need a reality of the spiritual world, our spiritual self, in relation to our human self, and that was missing. And that's what took me from being in Nova Scotia to California, inevitably, to get my PhD in transpersonal psychology, because that's missing. Even now in the DSM, there's like this much information about spirituality and spiritual emergence or immersion or everything we're talking about. So even mindfulness, when I'm talking to people who are in mindfulness training, they're still not being mindful. They're being theoretical in their heads and the theory of mind, but to be really present, it takes training. It takes training. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. It does. It takes work that a lot of people don't want to do. The other thing with the dark night is there is this feeling of, am I going crazy? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big fears of a human being, is just completely
the insanity.
Going.
Yeah.
The Joker and Batman, right?
Yes. Ooh. One of the books I would like to write, I don't know that it will get written because basically all my books are downloaded. I mean, they write themselves. I don't know. You've got 4 books. Do you find that? Have you found that your books write themselves?
Yeah. Number 6 is being worked on right
96.
now.
Excellent.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call it a download, but a lot of the writing happens in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before even getting to the keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would like to write a book about insanity, and not in terms of the insanity of the mental health description, but what it is inside of us that we have to cope with every single day, that we don't let ourselves even consider, like, that is really insane. War at this time of our reality, that is insane. But living with and coping and how do we be with the insanity of relationships? People betray us, lie, break promises, parents don't show up, or whatever that is that creates that insanity, that in essence creates anxiety, because it's like, oh, it's going to happen again. But the everyday insanities are so hard on our humanness. And I think that's part of what is the benefit of a dark night of the soul, is you really get to go, wow, that world is really insane, to live that way and to live in the promises that the corporate world or the pharma world or the medical world or the political world, that we're going to be saved and that we're safe. And if I get married or if I have a whatever, that's going to save me. And then all of the things that show up afterwards, it's insane.
Couldn't it just all be deleted if we just make everything okay?
Everything's great. It's all good, right? It's all good. And I know you do some work with Ho'oponopono.
Yes, I'm a
And
practitioner. Yeah.
and one of the things I love about listening to Dr. Hugh Len is that he says, hey, no data, no data. And that's a huge practice to go, yeah, no, no data about that, no data about that, no data. And being able to clear, and the mindfulness then becomes like, okay, that's where I'm entering data into my download in my system. Or as in the law of attraction, Abraham Hicks say, we are in a world of attraction. Our universe is a world of attraction, but we live in a world of, we create this world of assertions, which is we keep adding the data back in. It doesn't work.
Yeah, Dr. Hugh Len says just keep cleaning.
I know.
Because we don't know how deep this subconscious mind is. There's no way to humanly know.
Nope.
It's so far beyond our scope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even a so-called enlightened person doesn't know.
Nope.
Um,
nope. I've been working with Paul Selig's work. And are you familiar with Paul Selig?
I'm not.
Well, he channels Melchizedek, or what they call it, the guides, and it's in essence the same. You know, that we have this capacity to be in our higher knowing. And in an instant, when I'm working with people, I can ask a question and they're in it in a second, in a heartbeat. But to stay there and sustain that is, first of all, getting aware of that, but then choosing it over and over again. But the point is that they, are in that same place where Dr. Hugh Len is. And it's like, we got to let go of all this small self stuff, the data that we keep living as if it's true, to let in what we don't know. But the more I do that, and I'm sure this is true for you, I would suspect it's true for you, I don't know, it's amazing what shows up. The more that I let go of whatever that stuff I'm attached to, stuff comes in that's like, oh my God. And spiritual teachings tell us that all the time. But
yes.
We don't realize it until it starts happening. We go, there it is.
Yeah, synchronicities just all over the place. It happened to me just last week or the week before. I'm working on a new program with a clinic I'm opening up, and it has to do with pain. In fact, pain is in the title. It's Peace Over Pain.
I love that.
And I'm reading a marketing book. And the marketers give examples, right? To better teach. And he starts giving an example of a pain clinic. And the program that I'm working on is 120 days.
Okay.
And he mentioned the pain clinic on page 120. And I just had to throw the book in the air and be like, all right, okay, I'm on the right track.
Excellent. Awesome. Awesome.
Stuff like that happens all the time.
Yes.
Unexplainable.
Yeah. And a lot of times people will say, it never happens to me. And it's like, let's look at that. Let's see what you're looking at. It never happens here. It never happens here. It never happens here. It's like, what if you, when's the last time you remember something happening to you? Let's start looking at, there was cereal in the cereal box. Wow. And we start looking at where it is as opposed to where it's not. So part of our reality that we create for most of us is that so for instance, a client says, love never comes to me. It's like, oh, well, that's an interesting thought. But let's look at where it is coming in. Just as an example, as an experiment. For the next 2 weeks, I want you to notice where love comes to you. Her dog wags the tail. Her children come in from school and say, hi, Mom. Whatever that is, where love does come in or currency does flow in, we generally deny, yeah, that's just that though, but that's just that, as opposed to saying, yeah, no, that's love coming in. That's love coming in. That's synchronicity. Yes, there and there and there. And the more we notice, the more it comes in, right? Is that your experience? The more Say yes to yes, as opposed to, yeah, that works for you guys. That works for you, Dr. Kevin and Dr. Rosie. It works for you guys because it's like, yeah, no, it works for you too. It's that training ourselves to, it's the training and the discipline.
My understanding is that love surrounds us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about if you're open or closed.
That's right.
And so if you're closed, then you don't feel it. Maybe you can if you hook up with a partner or something like that, but you can make a case that that's bonding and not
Yes.
love.
Yes, absolutely. When I looked at your information and when I looked at saw the clinic, that peace over pain, it's like, that is like the absolute truth. I mean, it's love over pain, but you use peace because I think that's so important, because we are constantly saying, we want peace, but we have to learn to create it within ourselves in a way that is what you're saying. It's like you're in peace or you're not. I was talking to some clients yesterday and they've been in recovery for 7, 8, 9 years.
Mm.
And we were talking about their business. I do business coaching and as well as everything else I do. But in the realms of that, it's like, we were talking about this blah, blah, blah. And I said, so what are you going to practice? And he said, I'm going to practice making time for serenity and peace. I'm going to make time to find serenity. And I said, hold on here. I said, I want you to do something for me. And there was 2 of them sitting there. I said, I want you to close your eyes and bring yourself into serenity. And when you're there, just raise a finger or a hand. And he went, okay, I'm there. And I said, okay, how long did that take you? He said, not even a second. It's like, so you're going to go find it when it's already here.
Yep.
But so it's already here. The love is already here. The peace is already here.
It's already here.
And it's all that data. It's like, yes, but what about, where's the money? Where's the person? But it's like, no, the peace is already here. And when we can cultivate that, and that's why I love the name of your clinic, because it's like the pain dissipates, the healing occurs spontaneously.
Yeah. When you're in mindfulness and great acceptance, I mean, pain just becomes a teacher,
That's right.
You could have a horribly painful bad back that's just ruining your life, but that doesn't mean that you have to mentally suffer on top of it.
That's right.
It's a choice.
That's right.
And that's why I named it Peace Over Pain. And it's a choice. It's right there in the title. It's a choice.
That's right. And that the level to which I've been in the field of transformation for 20 some years, but I'm just getting the alchemy that happens through this transformative process. I mean, it's like, the caterpillar in the cocoon, that's alchemy. But when we are shifting our mindset, in the research says this, and Bruce Lipton says this, and Joe Dispenza, everybody's saying this, when we change our mindset, it's alchemy begins to happen, the manifestation of something different. Healing takes place in our body. But it was when it was like, yeah, alchemy, no, that's those special guys out there, the mystic metaphysics. It's like, hell no, it's like every single one of us. Everyone. And that's the exciting thing about this work. And I'm pointing to you and to me is the work that so many people are doing is they're bringing in this knowing of this capacity, and we're living it and holding that space, creating that space for that knowing, like it's a matter of fact, right? It's just a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And in that, people go, oh, it's a matter of fact. Okay. And we start to generate more and more awareness and truth in that. So that's, for me, really exciting and fun.
So how do you age like a guru?
Ooh. The same way as what we're talking about is looking at here's who I am, and here's my fears, here's what I'm attached to. Here's the way I want it to be. And going, okay, just time out. Let's just be here now and be with what is. And in that sense of, again, there's those attachments, and then there's release or freedom or liberation or enlightenment or whatever, where we're in that state of grace. And that state of grace, the state of peace, the state of serenity. And so if I'm really wanting this state of grace in my aging process, then I have to keep looking at what's coming in that is interfering with that state of grace, that state of mindfulness and presence. I'm turning 70 in 1 month from today. And that is like this big, like the whole world just kind of goes, okay, she's 70 now, she's old. Like I did an interview with some people, and this woman who had some very powerful psychic abilities, she said, as soon as I said that about this 70 thing, she said this whole download, this matrix came in of how that is so true in our reality. Like, okay, now she's old, and now you're limited, and now you have to watch where you walk, and now you got to go see your doctor, and now you got to all this stuff, right? You got to watch your money, and you got to, and it's like that's that matrix, that consensus view of reality that just kind of drops in. And it's like, you got to stay mindful of, wait a second, that's not true. There are people who are living in their hundreds and happily and healthily. That's not true that it has to be that way. It's not true that I have to start going to the doctor and getting medical examinations. It's not true that I have to, be more wise with my money, but all that stuff that's limiting and scary. And so being mindful, again, using that word, the mindful of how am I being in this moment as a human being? We're aging from the time we become a zygote to, well, eternally, right? I mean, in terms of this body process. And so the process of aging, when we turn 18 and we go, woohoo, sex and hormones or 13 or whatever that starts. But that aging process, or now I get to retire, or now I get to, and all of those things, it's like we're always in the aging process, but it's what our context says to us about it, what we listen to and believe.
Yeah, well said. And I think, I see, my parents getting overwhelmed, 72 and 75. It's a lot for seniors, particularly ones that are in lower consciousness that don't practice mindfulness. And then comes the big harsh reality, which is being afraid to die.
That's right.
That's the big one, because that's the ultimate loss.
That's the ultimate loss.
That's it. That's worse than losing your home or your car. So, people get really frightened.
Yeah.
What to do?
Yeah.
Age like a guru.
Age like a guru. And, the truth is that a large number of people, actually, the research says a large number of people begin to cultivate a relationship with their spirituality later in life. And it makes sense because, I mean, first, it's really challenging to stay mindful when you've got to clean up spilled milk or diapers or the boss or the traffic, or it's very challenging to have a life that's mindful in the midst of all that. That's very challenging. It's not like it's not true, because I talk about parent like a guru, talking about cultivating spirituality in our children. And those are some of the books that I've written. So it's how do we create that mindfulness? But as we're aging, in a sense, the inevitability of, okay, I'm dying. The ultimate frontier, the ultimate uncertainty is facing me. And what do I want to do about that? How do I want to be with that? Do I want to be more, I'll use the word enlightened, but more aware and more conscious at choice about that? Or am I going to be a victim, oh my goodness, to the aging and dying process? I am very clear. I plan to die in my bed, like sleeping. I'm not sick. I'm totally, absolutely healthy. And it's just the day to go, gone. that I don't have to buy into, oh, you're going to get sick and dementia. And it's like, we can create that, I believe. And we can also create the reality that says, no, I'm not planning on going that way. And being mindful about how I work as best I can to create that reality that I'm intending.
So you're alluding to, I believe, a sort of a yogi type of skill where you can create death sort of on the spot in a way. Is that?
Well, I'm not talking about, I mean, I don't have any intentions to just like go, yeah, I'm ready to go tonight. Set the clock.
Disappear like Yoda.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that. I just mean that, I mean, I'll be around for as long as I'm around, but there are people who, go work in the garden and they come in and they lay down, take a nap, and they don't get up. They just die. They've had a beautiful day playing in the yard or whatever, and they just lay down or watching TV and they're done. And so I'm not saying I'm choosing that yogi thing.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we think, oh, when you get the decline and decrepitude,
yeah,
it's all downhill from 40 basically on. But it's like now it's 70. It's like, oh, it's all downhill from 70. And then people in 80s, like, and then my dad was in his 90s when he died. And he was vital till 6 months before he died, which was awesome. And so that vitality is, I'm not planning or intending or again, this is that data of, oh, you get old and you get sick and your mind goes. Or people will say, oh, I'm not sleeping well. It's because I'm getting old. Or I have pains in my body because I'm getting old. So all of these things that they say because I'm getting old, it's not the truth.
no.
And so that's the stuff that, I'm not like, I mean, I love what I do in terms of aging like a guru work and talking about it, but it's like, it is not that's causing you pain and suffering and emotional, whatever, it's because you are in here doing this. And let's take some of that ageism thing off the pressure of what's happening to you, so that you can be more present to what is, as opposed to, oh, it's aging.
Yeah, I get that in my field as well. Somebody with sore knees, and I'm aging, and I say, well, how old's your other knee?
That's a good question.
And
that's great.
Yeah, we just got to take care of ourselves, and that includes our mind.
Yeah. I saw some video, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was What the Bleep, but it was about how when we don't take care of ourselves emotionally, and so we stuff things and ignore and avoid and distract and deny, that stuff just stays in us, and it takes room. It takes proprioceptors, I think is the big word, where it kind of clogs up the places where the healthy stuff can come in. It clogs us up. And so that energy, what we call emotion, it's just like it creates a stuckness. And so we can't heal that, because we can't let the good stuff in, because we're holding on to that emotional energy. And so when we begin to let it go and let it go and let it go, now we have room for vitality. Now we have room for the proprioceptors to work the way they're supposed to work and all the rest of it. So
yeah, there's a lot of clearing practices. People have chakra stuff, and in Ho'oponopono, we just, do our stuff and just kind of do it on the spot.
Yep. Every moment.
Yeah.
It's this being a human being is big work. We don't realize it. We don't realize it until we realize it. Like, this is big shit.
Yes.
There's a guy named Christian Sundberg. Have you come across him yet?
No.
So he wrote a book on YouTube. He's been interviewed by a lot of people, where he remembers time between lives. he remembers how he chose to come back into this reality, how, he met this being on, between sort of, we'll just call it hell. And he went, you are awesome, big, beautiful being, you do that. And the guy, I basically to earth and I did this work and it was really scary, but I did it and I ascended and, blah, blah, blah. And Christian said, I'm doing it. And so he tells a story about how he said he trained himself, got ready, came into a woman's body. And in the process of coming in, he felt the denseness and denseness and denseness. And it was too much. He said, I can't do this. And so he left. He felt really guilty about that and worked it out on the other side and said, I still want to do it. So he came back in. And so this lifetime is obviously when he's talking about this process and what he's been going through. But he also talks about how the truth about this exquisiteness and the challenges of being this spiritual being in this human experiences. Paul Selig talks about this, and Course in Miracles, and all kinds of people are talk about, we are here in this being to work things out. We're not here just to, have all the fun you're willing to have. I mean, that's sort of the objective, but to get there is a lot of work, and it's excruciating. I call it exquisitely excruciating.
Yeah. Yeah. The Pixar movie, Soul, has a really nice format of that,
Yes.
nice story of that. And, if we go back to the subconscious mind and we don't know how deep it is, then you throw past lives into the mix.
Yep.
We're talking some heavy stuff here. So
that's right.
Is it possible that if someone's going through a tough time, there's data in their subconscious from 5 lives ago because they were murdered by a Viking or something?
Or they murdered a Viking or what, yes. And I come across that in my work all the time with clients. It's like, this is not going away. And this is a pattern that started before. It's like, hey, let's talk about it. See what that's about. And I also use the book Oneness, which is a transcribed piece from a woman named Rasha. And I hate when I do this because I give that and then I forget what I was going to say. What were we just talking about? Oh, they talk about parallel lives. So they're saying there's us here now, but then there's the parallel. There's all these other parts of ourselves that are having other lives. And they're looking at us and going, you are the high truth. You're the high, but we're affected by these other lives that are happening. And what the process is we're integrating all of it into, a singular unit of divine spark.
Yeah.
But that it's not only just, and basically they say, people have said like 4 or 5% is all we're conscious of our whole being. It's 4 or 5%. We got a lot of unconsciousness there.
Oh yeah. And who knows what's going on there?
And who knows? And the more I turn it over and go, I'm not the boss here. I don't have a clue. The more I can acknowledge that I don't have a clue, the better life gets.
My understanding is that it's almost like there's a DVR in all of us. And it's just recording.
Yes.
You know how people, like an atheist will debate with a religious person and be like, oh, so you think there's a guy in the sky that can just look over billions of people? My rebuttal to that would be, no, you have a DVR in you that's recording everything. And if somebody wants to play it, they can. That's my response, because I have to think that's where the whole life flash before your eyes comes from. Somebody almost dies, or somebody does die. They have the flash before your eyes. That's the DVR playing, like.
Yep. Yep.
Oh man.
I did some work with ibogaine. This was a number of years ago. It's a plant medicine, and it was phenomenal. The pictures of reality that flashed before me through this, among other things, but this one moment where there was just this, like you said, this flash of who I am. And it was like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That there's so much that, you know, and the more I let go, and the more I empower people to empower themselves to let go, the more wonder shows up, the more mystical, magical life is, more beauty. That's the fun thing. And see what's going to show up is, rather than us being so afraid, and that's what we've been taught to be afraid. We've been taught and trained to be afraid. But as we go, okay, I can't have that life that I want, that I say I want. I can't have that love. I can't have that peace. I can't have that freedom from pain as long as I stay so attached to fear as my compass, as my north.
Yeah, it's just a survival mechanism.
Just a survival mechanism. But we don't know any different, because we're trained. Trained to, like, of course you want to survive, so listen to your fear. It's like, well, okay, I get that totally. And I struggle with that in some ways every day, some element of fear that I go, what?
It's faded. It's starting to fade for me.
Yeah.
It's just so much work. It's just you got to go through so much in order to get there.
Is it as much work for you now as it was?
It's just more constant. It's every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Even if I can't fit a meditation in, it's still every day, because, you know, I got to deal with mom, or I got to deal with a client, or, I mean, there's so many opportunities to let go. It's a constant game of let go.
That's right.
It's a game. It's just, you're just in the game, and it's like, how much can I let go of?
That's right.
This person really upset me. Okay. How do I let this go? And then the next time they upset you, oh, it's a little less. And oh, next thing you know, it's gone. It's like, you just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings me back to Yoda's thing, train yourself to let go of what you're afraid to lose, is when that person upsets you and you go, yeah, but I have a right to be upset. I have a right to have blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, so what's your higher knowing? What's your higher truth right now? Your right to be right, or that relationship, or peace? What is your highest? Do you want to be right, or do you want peace? It's like, yeah, no, I want both. And I talk a lot in my YouTube videos, but also I do the spiritual dilemmas. Like, that's the spiritual dilemma. I want to be right. I have a right to be right, but I want peace. How do we do that? And that's what I love about the work.
We make a choice.
We have to make a choice. Yeah, but what do I do with my right? I want to be right. Who am I if I'm not right?
It really is a choice.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the whole thing. That's so paradoxical.
Yeah.
Is that it's a choice, but we're programmed not to make the choice.
That's right. So a lot of I have a book, a little ebook called Fierce Compassion, Becoming an Agent of Transformation. And it's sort of the manual. And I say sort of a manual because I haven't finished it yet, but the part 1 is on Amazon as an ebook, Fierce Compassion. But I talk a lot about how are you choosing to choose what you choose? How are you choosing to choose what you choose? And it's like, I have to be right, because who am I if I'm not right? If I'm not right, I must be wrong. If I'm wrong, that makes me insignificant and stupid and an idiot and failure. And it's like, that kind of stuff is going on in our brains all the time. So it's like, well, how do you choose? Well, I don't want to be an idiot, so I got to stick to right. It's like, that's a way of choosing what you choose.
Yeah.
We have thousands of ways we do that. But asking that question, people go, no, you got too many choices in there. It's like, yeah, no, that's what we're doing all the time, is choosing to choose. Do I want to choose to be right, or do I want to choose to be pain-free, in essence?
Speaking of dilemmas.
Yeah.
What's the dilemma in being in business?
Ooh, I like that. The dilemmas of being in business are what shows up, that it says, like, the business model says A, B, and C, powerful, get out there, sell, the in a sense, the context that we hear all the time. So there, on one side, it's, here's what the business context says. It can't be personal. You've got to work at whatever that work. Versus, who are you in this? Who are you in the expression of you as this business, as this unfolding self? And people go, oh no, you can't do that and be in business. So in that particular book, I think it's 20 or 30 different people that I've worked with who are in business either for themselves or they worked in the corporate world. One specific situation is, this new startup, there were 5 engineers, and the CEO said, hey, one of you guys is going to be the vice president of that department. So rather than where they were a team, now they're vying for that vice presidency. And they all got like that, versus before they were like being a team. And so with each one of them, there was this dilemma. The ego came up and the fear came up. What if I don't get that? And what if he beats me out? That versus, who are you in this process? Who are you in this work that you do? How is this your work? How do we want to cultivate you in bringing your best to this position, versus the competitive, comparing, backbiting, negating? So the dilemma is, can we be in business and still be in our heartful self?
Yeah.
And make those decisions. This client that I mentioned earlier, it comes up time and time again where it's like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring this guy. But when I met him, he's a sales guy, the guy they were thinking about hiring. He's a sales guy, but all he did was talk. And I go, and how does that work for you? He goes, he's not listening. And I go, well, do you want to hire somebody like that? And he goes, well, he might bring in the client that we really want. So that dilemma of fear-based, he might be the one, but he isn't in alignment with the culture of this small business.
Right.
And so the dilemma is, do you live in the culture and be in alignment with your integrity and your truth?
Right.
Or do you compromise? And so that question is a constant for all of us.
Business is a heck of a game.
Business is a heck of another game.
It is.
Another game.
It is. When I started, getting ready to open this clinic and get the book ready and all that jazz, I asked my mentor, I was like, what should I do? That fear is coming up. And he said, just be okay to fail. That's it.
Nice.
He's like, that's it. Then you can just do it with fun and ease.
Yeah. And what I talk about a lot too, with people who are looking at business and how do I get business? And I say, be the invitation. And they go, what? And I go, how are you, in a sense, what we're wanting, I think, through your work and coming to this place of peace is when we are in our essential expression, our natural divine expression of what's ours to do or what is our contribution in the world, we're in that state of peace. And when we're in that, we become an attractor beam for people who want what we've got, in a sense.
Right.
As opposed to when I'm in a state of fear and resistance, like, oh, I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that, and what if nobody wants this? Then that sets me up, and I'm acting from that. Right? It has not been successful. My business has not been successful when I set it up based on, here's what you want and here's what I can give you and all that stuff doesn't work for me, basically. And I don't think it works for anybody. But when we can be an invitation and be the essential nature, be the essential, then something really amazing happens. And that's what these two people that I'm working and doing business coaching with, that's what we've been working on, is here's his culture that he wants to create: transparency, authenticity, integrity, basically, and people. And he comes up against these people come in and aren't in alignment, but the more he stays aligned, this last week, he went to Dallas and met this company, the $100 million company. And these people said, we're not about our product. We're about people. We're about integrity. We're about transparency. And they said exactly what my client has been holding as that aligned place. And with that invitation of him being who he is, in came this amazing possibility and some true, authentic connection between CEOs of a $100 million company. But it's like real people to people, which is what he wants. So the more that we are in alignment with our truth and the clarity of that, we can go, yeah, but is it going to make money? Yeah, but is it going to, it's like, I don't know. But what doesn't happen when you're not in alignment is a lot of exhaustion, managing people who are not in alignment and are trying to get you to do things that aren't in alignment.
And you have to be willing, especially in the social media era, you got to be willing to have people not like you.
That's right.
You say something polarizing or whatever, can't contract every time someone says you're an idiot.
That's right. Angela Zarian says, she was an anthropologist. She said, at any given moment, 50% of the people on the planet are going to love you, and 50% of the population are probably going to hate you. So it's like, just be you. That's basically all that we can do. Hang on one second. Gracie, no. So, and that's a big practice, isn't it? Just being you and going, well, I should bring in more of this because that's what people will want, but it's not in alignment with what I want, but it'll bring in more people. Right. It's like, yeah, no, this is my highest truth, my highest good, my highest knowing, my highest contribution, period. Because that's what we're here to be, that expression of the divine.
So before I ask you my last question, where can people come find your work? Where can they come find you?
Two places are really good. One is my website is called theparadigmshifts.com. You can Google me, Rosie Kuhn, Kuhn, and lots of stuff comes up. You can find me on YouTube. I have lots and lots of videos on transformational coaching, on spirituality in business and spirituality and everything else, spiritual dilemmas. But I just have a lot of stuff there. And I have a boot camp there called Inward Bound Boot Camp for Self-Transformation. And it's just 20 videos and 10 minutes each about this process of self-transformation and sort of the elements or increments of skills. So there can be some skill building in this process that we're talking about. And it's really fun. So that's there too.
So the last question is, what are the top 3 most influential books that you've read?
Right now, what comes to mind is Oneness, Course in Miracles, and David Hawkins' book, Transcending Levels of Consciousness.
Oh, anything David Hawkins is thumbs up. He was quite interesting, wasn't he?
Yeah.
MD and PhD.
Yeah.
Transformation in his, I think, around the age of 40.
Yeah. But he had some experiences as a kid that kind of was the foundation to all of that happening, and alcoholic issues and kinds of interesting things. So, yeah.
But the fun thing to see with him is he maintained his career even after his awakening.
Yeah.
And not everyone does that.
Yeah.
Some people end up in the mountains or something.
Well, and he's really clear about that in Transcending Levels of Consciousness. He says, when you get past 600, you're going to need help it was a challenge to read that, because it's like, wait a second, I live alone on the side of a mountain. I don't know how I'm going to get somebody to, that kind of thing. But I don't think that's necessary, because I don't plan to stop working. And I don't plan, and from the other readings, his teachings is one thing, that's his experience, but he's also basically showed that that's not accurate. And since he continued until he died, until he passed over, to be, working. And I think work, two things, well, more than two, but the two biggies is keep working and keep being creative. Like, what's the creative outlet for you in your expression of self? It might be basket weaving. It could be, I don't know,
Knitting.
I love knitting. I like painting. I like writing, all of the things, anything. But the creative is what's going to keep you alive and vital. I think those two things: keep working, be in nature as much as you can.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Kevin. It's nice to talk to you too.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.